Welcome to a follow-up on my last TXR video where I talked about the changes to the perk system and all the other stuff in that update. I'm happy to report back that the game is in a much better state now with that latest update. Initially I wasn't really planning on going for another playthrough, but then I decided to make a backup of this save file where I have all my customized cars, and then just go for a fresh new game and experience the early game a bit more. Also just to see if all the weird bugged unlocks that I have here are due to the fact that I already unlocked everything before, or if it was just completely broken. Turns out that if you go for a fresh playthrough where nothing is unlocked, then it's actually all working out as it should. But the game can't really handle having everything unlocked before and then the devs resetting everything. That just didn't really work out too well. So it doesn't matter too much. But yeah, besides checking out on that principle thing, I'm also happy to report that the game feels much less stingy with money now. You can actually build up quite a few cars, and you also get better option for cars at different parts of a playthrough. And the battle point system, while there will be a decent amount of grind if you want to get everything, it works out pretty well. Little correction compared to my last video. I mentioned that you only get 2 battle points for the first win against a new rival and then 1 for every consecutive one. You actually get 3 for the first and then once again only 1 for each battle win after. So yeah, 3 points, meaning that with the expected amount of rivals we should be getting 1200 points, or maybe a bit more than that, for a regular playthrough without any repeat battles. So yeah, from the points that I spent already, there's going to be quite a bit of grind. Plus there are more cars coming out, likely more upgrades here and there, and we'll just have to see how it goes. So let's take a closer look at everything, and I want to start by talking about one thing that I really was a bit concerned about with how the entire playthroughs used to play out. And it all comes back to the RX-8. The last stage, where you have to beat quite a few cars in order to get to the last bosses and eventually Cinderella. The RX-8 used to be the only viable car to really go for that. You could maybe go with something a bit slower and still make it work, but in the end, this was the standalone fastest car in that entire stage, and I'm happy to say that there are now a few viable alternatives, starting with the Levorg. The 2015 version is still a post-Cinderella vehicle, but you can get this one for the full last stage in the game. It's a bit heavier than the older version, it has a bit less power, but compared to a lot of other cars available, it's a pretty good one. Another one is the FC RX-7 and the older Supra over here. So these are 3 really good cars that, I mean, at least the RX-7 and the old Supra are known from other games. So you likely know what to expect, and yeah, they can definitely take you through the entire phase if you want to. I got all 3 of these. I didn't go for the RX-8, partially due to money, but also, I mean, I use this car so often. I've done many playthroughs and this has always been one to go for. So I'm happy that we now have a few more viable options here to take instead. I don't get why they didn't also include the Silvia here. It would have worked out quite well against the others, I think, but this is also one that's now still post Cinderella, so I don't know. But yeah, in the end, that's already a big change, and I think there's only going to be more viable options because they recently announced that Honda is going to be in the game. I knew about the car files that were discovered after the start of early access, So Honda models have been in the game for a long time, but it always sounded like they had issues really sealing the deal. I think it might have been more something where they didn't know how the final deal would really work out, more than not being sure whether they could reach a deal at all. I mean, it wouldn't have made much sense for them to make the models before really knowing that it could have been worked out in the end. Anyways, I'm happy that they have it in the game now. Honda is such a big part of Japanese car culture, and that's what the entire game is built on. So not having Honda in this game would have been absolutely tragic, and they are going to definitely add both a few cars for early game as well as late game with the NSXs. So yeah, happy to have more options. I don't know how it's going to look in the mid-game sector, but I mean, Honda 2000 maybe. That would be nice. But yeah, there are going to be more cars and I'm happy about that. The car roster still looks a bit small, but who knows what's really going to come out with the final version in less than a month from now on. Really can't wait, so happy to see all that happening. I'm still somewhat expecting to see different starter cars with a final version. I mean, all the current starter cars are now no longer on the top of the trees. So we have the Sprinter Torino over here. We have the Master Roadster right here with two more phases on top. And even the Swift Sport is not on top anymore. So we're gonna have to see what's going to happen with the full release. I'm also hoping to maybe see a few rival teams rebalanced. Like you can start battling Livorks and WRXs as from your second rival on, because they are just driving around on the C1 Outer from the start, so that's a bit weird. And I would rather see that team being put much later into the game and maybe replaced with a Honda Civic team. So that would be nice. But I will have to see how that one pans out. The tuning, as I was a bit confused by, but it's actually the case. You have to unlock all the tuning even for level 1. So you have to beat everything stock when you start out, until you reach the first set of bosses with Eternal Polaris, Rolling Master, and I don't exactly know what the third... Oh yeah, that's one from the Phantom 9. So you have to beat those guys in order to even get level 1 tuning, but it's okay. It's also very noticeable when you look at it before unlocking that later stuff is taking much more BP in order to unlock, and yeah, there's going to be a fair amount of grind in order to get everything, but it works out. So with the expected 400 plus rivals in the final version, you should be getting about 1200 points by just beating every single rival once. And currently that's enough to get all the cars, get all the tuning parts, get about this many perks over here, or driver skills, and then also this set of perks. So yeah, given that some of the later stuff is actually very expensive, you can see how it goes from 10, 20, 30, 40 points. And there being more cars to unlock in the final version, there is going to be a bit of a grind in order to get everything. But you don't have to grind everything all at once, you can also just do it in between battles, just keep challenging a few cars that you come across and then you should be good to go. Another thing that I noticed is that for some of these skills there are missing parts in the information, so the description isn't really correct. Peace of Mind gives you increase battle gauge by a percentage. This isn't 10 points, it's 10%, 20%, 30%. That makes much more sense now, because your SP bar starts at 450, then you can upgrade it to 600. 10 points on top would be hardly noticeable. 10% on top, so 60 points, is at least a bit more. Still wouldn't say that it's really moving much for me, but yeah, at least it gives you a decent amount of an increase. And if you go all the way down here, I mean, that's 60, 120, 180, and once you get to the last stage, you should really get enough points to really increase your SP bar by quite a bit. So this becomes more significant further down the line, and I think that's also working out quite well. If it was really just 30 points, then who would really care about it? I got the feeling that quite a few other skills here have the same issue, where it should really give you a percentage. So like per 2% would make more sense than by 2 points. But who knows? I made a feedback post on Reddit, so I hope that's going to get looked at, but other than that I have no real idea here. And yeah, a lot of these perks are a bit situational. So if you are going for serial battles, then this one will definitely help you quite a bit, but it won't be useful for regular battles. There are a few others here. For this one, I still don't really know how it's supposed to work or where the limit is. But yeah, it's available. Also gotta say, anything that restores SP is very significant. I wouldn't necessarily go for the Nitro system restoring, but at least the self-love skill is really helpful. This also restores it due to damage dealt to opponents. This might also work, but this one, unless you are somewhere on the one gun, it's really going to help you out quite a bit by just being able to, even if you fall behind, keep cornering well, and you get enough points back to maybe hang in there for a bit longer. So some of these skills really useful. I'm still not entirely a fan of the system. I think the game would have also been fine without it. But as it is, there are a few nice touches here, and having some opponents that also have their own skills, it works out pretty nicely. It's not a one-sided thing, and that makes it so much better. But yeah, I think there's still an argument to be made for the charm of just having the battles play out due to who is the better machine and who drives better, than having to rely on completely tipping the scale in regards to the battle system itself. But yeah, overall this is pretty alright. The perk system, in the end, I'm mainly using it to make more money. Some of it feels a bit vague. For example, when it comes to technical bonus, there is no bonus that's called technical bonus. This is an entire field of bonuses, which is something like, I think it's also clean cornering, close misses with traffic cars and that kind of thing. Long run bonuses getting increased by this, so this is actually pretty good, and I think it's 10% every time. I don't know why they don't point it out like that. It is a bit weird. Victory rewards, I wouldn't suggest you do that. It seems to be 25k every time. So whether you get another 25k every, I guess it's gonna be 10 by default, then 8, 7, 6 and 5. Doesn't really make much of a difference. You can also increase the perfect bonus which you get by not having any damage done to you through the battle, which is decent. But I think the win streak, this is actually, if you go for victory reward and win streak, I think, oh no, win streak is a different one. This is actually pretty useful because that increases by every single battle as far as I'm aware. So can recommend this one not quite as much. And given that I just talked about how many points you can expect from a regular playthrough, even if you have to grind for a lot of points, I don't get why you would ever really need an increased battle points wallet. Going to 200 might be a good idea with how expensive some of the later ones are. I mean, this one costs 40 points alone. So if you are at around 35 or something and then go for a long grinding session, then yeah, you can end up with more than 100 points and miss out on a few. But everything else is just so much out of proportion. BP level 4 is really just for people who don't have anything else to buy anymore. But yeah, those are my current ideas on the entire thing. We also get a few options to just pay a bit less, get a bit more money back for selling a car and that kind of thing. But yeah, I think the money making stuff here, that's the big ones. And I feel happy that the stuff is now a bit easier to get and you don't have to go for a lengthy post-game grind in order to even get another endgame car. You can maybe get one of them by just, or you could get one of them by just playing through the game, and once you get to post endgame you have maybe enough money to buy one and most of the upgrades, and now it should be a bit more lenient in that way. Maybe even a bit too lenient at some points, but it feels good. I don't want to be too down on that. Once we get more cars available, then we also have more stuff to spend the money on, and therefore the extra money will be a bit more appreciated. But yeah, with how things worked out on my other playthrough, I kinda wish I still had that save file, but I've overwritten it with my backup already. I started out with the Sprinter Torino again. I bought the Cappuccino afterwards just to try it out because I kinda ignored that car for the longest time. It worked out pretty well for the C1, but the faster parts I needed the 180 SX. So that worked out for a while, and then once I got to the later stages, I don't remember if I bought any car in between, but eventually I got I think first the Supra. Notice that it didn't have that many options for optical upgrades. It really just has one spoiler, one bonnet, one set of bumpers all the way around and side skirts, and that didn't really do much for me. So eventually I went and got the Savannah, and then eventually even the Levorg, because I just wanted to try out that one as well. It actually has 8 gears, which is pretty insane. But yeah, worked out pretty well. I got those cars. I think I did a bit of grinding to get one of these, but nothing too crazy. So this is all pretty neat, and I'm just so happy how the entire thing worked out. So yeah, once again, looking forward to the final release. I don't think there's much else to say at this point. I'm just waiting to finally see how the full thing looks and plays like. And I think at this point, until then, this might be the last TXR video until we get that update, unless we get something else in early access, who knows. I made a feedback post about hopefully getting an option to transfer different cars between different save files. Not really in a way of getting a freebie or something. I don't want a progression skip. But if I decide to reset my save file, start fresh, I would still like the option to get back the customization for my cars. just so that the time that I spent making these liveries isn't really lost. We'll have to see if they ever add anything like that. But yeah, I think at this point I'm just gonna say thanks for watching, I hope you enjoyed, see you guys next time, and until then, as always, have a good one, and bye bye.